Okay, my friends, get ready for this. I just pop on YouTube this morning to see what's going on, and for some reason, they've got my video on here for new research on Atlantis, part 1. This goes back 2 years ago. Why it's here, everything else is 6 days old and I got only a few views here, 8,000 views. And this was 2 years ago. Why did this show up? So anyway, I had written a paper on this in 2015 about what Atlantis really is. And at that time, I knew it was Atlantis. I'm sorry, the Eye of the Sahara. They call it the Eye of the Sahara. All right, the Rickard, formation. They call it the Eye of the Sahara. Well, I did Atlantis and the draining of the Sahara because it ran out over the top of Atlantis, which is that eye. But not only that, it's much more than that. I'm about to shock you to your bones. Okay, my friends, shocker du jour. No sense dragging you through the soup. Look at all these little blocky things here. They're everywhere. And they come to this whole blocky mass, which is nothing more than a bunch of these blocks going down the face. And look where they lead to. They lead to these rivers. All right, you saw all those blocky looking things. Well, is there other ones around here? Well, yeah, there is. These are the same blocky looking things going to the same, whatever this is here. And there's blocky looking structures all over here. You see them? Let me bring the camera in a little closer on that. I'm going to tell you where this is. This is at the Eye of the Sahara. And I'm going to tell you what this is in a second. But you can see all of these little blocky structures all over. This formation is nothing but blocks. Blocky, 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 all over. Why? Why do we need these little blocks? Was there people living there? Well, these are all like plateaus, and they run down here because it's been eroded. Well, guess what these are? These are nerves. And what I was just showing you is the optic nerve, and these are the neural fibers running up to it. And there's more over here. This is a nerve from a gigantic eyeball. You see the blocky fibers over here too? Well, I'm going to show you what an eyeball has, which is exactly this. And it leads to exactly an eyeball, which happens to be the eyeball of the Sahara. Now let's follow these nerve fibers down. They all run around the eyeball of the Sahara. And it's a whole big nerve conduction all the way around. And this one comes up here, and this one comes over here. And they both have these blocky looking things all over them. At the end where they interface is where they drop off their nerve signals. And that's called the optical nerve. Optic nerve. And you see? Very, very sophisticated device. Very, very complex. I don't know how the damn thing works, but I can tell you what, when it's working good, you can see. When it's not working good, you can't see well. Now, I have a blind spot in my eye. I was popped in the eye really badly when I was a kid. And my eye turned just brilliant red for a long time. And I still have a blank spot in that eye. So something got broken. And I lost conduction to some of these little spots, but not everywhere. So don't forget, this is the Eye of the Sahara. I wrote a paper on this back in 2015, and at that time I did not know it was an eyeball. I did know it was Atlantis, and I called it Atlantis and the Draining of the Sahara. This used to be an ocean, and it drained right out over the top of Atlantis, which is an eyeball. Just look at this. Just think of it as you're a kid, you're 10-year-old. There's a mud ran out over the top of here and piled up here in the ocean and created the Cape Verde Islands. It swished around and swished around, and there's where the major impact of it was, right in the middle. Swish, swish. This is called an alluvial plain. It's flatter than a pancake out there because it's just mud. And that's what Plato said. They will never speak of mud again. And this is that event. And all of that ran out over the top of Atlantis, which is here. And he said it was outside the straits. And everybody thought that was the Straits of Gibraltar. No, it's this straits right here. All right, that's the straits. And the ocean was on this side, and Atlantis was on that side. It'll come into focus in a minute, I hope. It's running a little slow here. There's the straits. Now, how did all the water get from there and just go here? There was almost like a bowl. All right, this was almost like a bowl here. And it ran out around that straits. Came crashing through here and out. Now, I think there was a garrison right here at one time. It looks to me like there could have been something here, but I can't support that statement. But I don't know. I don't think this is the optic nerve anymore here. I don't know what this is, but it has some kind of patterning to it. It could be, it's tissue basically of some sort, I'm sure. Now, was there any structures here? I don't know. But I would have said this, if this is the entrance to the Sahara Ocean, they would have had to have troops here and probably over on this side too, to make sure that only they get let in the ones they wanted and not the ones they didn't want. And they would collect tariffs from them probably, and Atlantis, being back here, would have been the one that had all its troops. Because inside here, I always thought these were channels that they built coming between the rings. You see the rings? And they have all these little channels coming in between each ring. You see that? These could, I always thought these were like, and they could still have been used as boat docks. There's just literally thousands and, well, I don't know how many, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Just like they were little boat entrances, channels coming in. And then they'd get to the ring is where they had their little houses and stuff, whatever they had here. And there was ring after ring. Boom, boom, boom. And then you get into the center, which was here, which was where the lens of the eye is, and it's here now. It just moved off. You see it? As far as I'm concerned, that's the lens of the eye, and it's stripped away where it would have normally been held and just pushed off during the flood. It was, this here should have been here. It got ripped right out. Obviously biological. I mean, nobody can miss this. If you look at these things here, this is absolutely 100% identical to an eye. Each one of these comes wrapping around. It's picking up all these signals from everywhere. Give me some signals. Give me some input. Give me some input. Give me some input. I'll tell these guys over here what to do. They'll send it to the brain. The brain will take it and process it. Give me more. Give me more. Give me more. That's what's going on around here. This whole thing is nothing more than nerves gathering data from the eyeball, sending it to those little blocky structures I showed you, coming out of here and coming out of here. These are the two main exits. And every one of these areas here is where it's feeding its stuff. Now, I'm trying to figure out if some of these relate to color, and some of them relate to, I don't know what they relate to. They're just nerves as far as I'm concerned. They're nerves outputs. And they're sucking all of that information into this fuzzy looking thing, which is where all of that nerve information is going. And then it just sends it all back here, and it must organize it somewhere here. And then it sends all these little things and it says, okay, you guys go this way, you do it. And then they end up hitting the optic nerve up here. And the optic nerve sorts out the signals, it appears. And then the brain, it takes every one of those little tiny fibers. This is just so stunningly elegant. It's hard to even imagine how powerful and complicated this little eyeball is. It shocks me every time I look at it. But now that I understand we're into the optic nerve, whose eyeball was this? Who was Sahara? This is the eye of the Sahara. Who was Sahara? This is exactly, there is just no difference whatsoever. None, zero in the eyeball and this, because there's an eyeball. This is how your eyeballs work. They pull in and out on these little filaments to adjust your vision depending upon what you're looking at. And then those signals go around through those two filaments back to the eyeball, to the optic nerve. Now, I had somebody send me a picture of what I believe is some kind of a big eyeball. Let me show you that. It's a mud fossil, but it's this stripped away, and the back of the eyeball has the little blocks in it, which are the optic nerves, and you can see a little hole in the center where it must have been the main attachment. That's what I see. You can tell, you think what you think, I'll show you. But as far as I'm concerned, this is just literally identical to Atlantis, which is the eye of Sahara's eye. All right, I get things all the time, and I don't even know where they came from. This is from somebody called Darlene, and Darlene, thank you. And this is an eyeball. As far as I'm concerned, that's the optic nerves right in there. And this would have been where one of the lens areas was. And I believe that's one of the main outputs or whatever. But all these blocky looking things, to me, represent the optic nerve. Okay, this is obviously quite simplistic, but this is basically the muscles of the eye that do this. That's the nerve fibers that come around, and these are the optic nerve sensory blocks. That's all I can tell you. And they take in the information, feed it to the brain. Now I'm looking at this right here, and these could be muscle. This could actually be muscle sarcomeres, little blocks. I really don't know. But they are blocky, and they're in this area, and they're being serviced with blood. And they are in this area right here, attached to the eye, coming down this outside attachment. I don't know what it is. The inside ones here, these two here, where we saw all those nerve blocks up here. And I believe this is the processor right here that takes all that nerve information. I've traced it pretty carefully. It takes all that nerve information into here, into all those little blocks, if you recall. And then it moves it up in here in like a cloud. And then it goes into the main processor. I believe this is the main processor for your brain, the nerves that send out the signals through your optic nerve. And they come out here. Now, what this is, I'm not sure. It's got the same sort of configuration here. This is sucking out information from the eyeball collecting it here and sending it. This, I don't know what it's doing. It doesn't look like it's collecting anything from here, although I don't know. This may be all to direct how the muscle and the thing focuses and does all that other stuff. And this is the collection point to process. I don't know. I really have no idea. But I can tell you what, it's virtually certain that it is some kind of biology that's controlling something in the eyeball. When you look at it, I mean, look at this stuff. This is not accidental stuff. And this has a lot of the same sort of architecture where it comes up, and this is like a blocky stuff that feeds in here. These are all blocks. This is like kind of thick. And it feeds in here, whatever information's coming in here, I don't know. But up here, we're at 516 meters. We come down here, we're down to 460. It keeps dropping. So that's a pretty heavy duty chunk. And that looks to me like there's just nothing but fibers coming into this. The whole thing, and this has eroded away and sort of collected down here as all of these were inputs, but it's just eroded away, and every layer of connection is now exposed, so they look like a webbing, but this whole thing would have been layer after layer after layer after layer, and all the way up to the top. And that's pretty. Let's go down to here. We're down at 424 meters. Up here, we're at 513 meters. That's like 90 meters from here to here of nothing but nerve impulses. That's only one single block of looking at it here. This is only one little tiny section. Can you imagine the complexity of an eyeball? And I believe that's the processor. All right, I went back and looked at this, and I'm almost 100% certain that that right there is the muscle, and that right there is the nerve impulses sent to the brain over here for processing. You know, I just want to clear something up. I think I made a statement in one area where the muscle I mistook for a nerve. This, I believe, is some kind of, obviously, biology. And this is, again, in the same area near the eyeball. And I'm looking all over here. It's crazy. Now, don't forget, this was, I mistook this saying, ooh, look at all those layers. Well, they're muscle. This is the nerve and all those little blocky nerve fibers, and they come back, and I believe this is the central processor in the brain. It processes these major inputs of nerve signals. This is not the same. This is the muscle that works with all the muscular stuff that does whatever it has to do in your eye socket. I now feel. That's my claim. So I think I pointed out somewhere in this area showing these big blocks, which, I mean, it's the stuff is everywhere. It's not just here or there. It's everywhere, because this is it's a very complicated little eye device. But this blocks, they look very similar to the blocks over here that there are the nerve fibers, but I don't think they are nerves, although they might be, because this has to be controlled by nerves too. I don't know. There's a lot of investigating to do here, but I'm going to tell you right now, there's zero question in my mind. That's an eyeball. Okay, my friends, it has just come into complete focus, so to speak. No pun intended, actually pun intended. Now, I showed you this wrapping around here, and these two coming in to the optic nerves, feeding what I believe is the brain processor, because all that stuff ends up going into this region here. Now, then I showed you this one, which is on the outside of the optic nerve assembly. And this one here, I think, has actual muscle attached all the way around. I think this is the muscle, and this is the nerve, and between them is this separation. And that's exactly what you see in the eyeball. You have this leads to the optic nerve, which is all the little blocky things. All right. This one here, as I showed in one of the shots, I thought there might be some sarcomeres, and I think this is where the sarcomeres come in and start to attach, the muscle attaches to this outside layer. So you got your optic nerve filament coming to service the optic nerve. Then you've got a separation layer, and then you've got the muscle. And that's what, let me just show you one more time so we don't get confused. You've got your eyeball. This is the nerve fibers that come back, and they grab up all the data out of the eye. And it looks to me, there's that's what it looks to me, and send them all up through those blocky little webbing up there and into the processor. This is outside of the nervous area, and it is the muscle, which makes your eyeball do all kinds of things. I don't know, maybe it crunches it or twists it, or I know you can obviously turn your eyeball up and down and go this way and that way. And that may just very well be the device that does it, is all these muscle fibers. And that's what I believe these are, is muscle fibers. And then of course you have that separation layer, and then you hit the nerve. To me, that's, well, I know there's no question in my mind, and there's nobody's ever going to possibly convince me that that is not an eyeball. You to get an optometrist, or get anybody that can read and look and see and think, that's an eyeball. And it's right below all of the gigantic other stuff, the gigantic fish right there, and the gigantic dragon that's attacking them, all written about in the ancient texts. Atlantis was written about by Plato. I don't think he knew it was an eyeball. But maybe he did, I don't know. A lot of things were unspoken because they were, people were scared to say them. I was scared to say this stuff, and I wasn't really scared. I just knew what I was in for, and sure enough, I was in for it. Oh yeah. And this is attack of a fish. This is a fish being attacked by a gigantic dragon, spitting out jets of fire from his mouth. And this is Typhon. He's written about in the ancient texts. Apollodorus 1.6.3. Look it up. There's his dragon-scaled throat. Shown this 1,000 times. Nobody will speak about it. These are the things that your mind locks up on. And you're afraid to speak about it because people say, oh, the guy's crazy. He thinks this dragon's 1,200 miles long. And yes, I do. And yes, maybe I'm crazy, but it just may be a lunatic we are looking for. That's it. That's about all I got to say. There's a rarity right there. All right, I love you all.